Welcome to This Week in Podcasting, where we discuss this week's most exciting podcasting news and tips, all in under 10 minutes. Episode 22 is provided by Sounder.fm, the smarter way to podcast. Let's get started. This week we cover why podcasts will live forever, creative ways creators are engaging their listener communities, one simple tip to get compelling interviews, and podcasts by the numbers. First up, a select few podcasts are now immortal thanks to the U.S. Library of Congress. Podnews reports, the library is currently writing to selected podcasters to ask permission to add their show to collections, preserve it, and provide public access to it, including online. As a refresher, the Library of Congress is the second largest library in the world. Its collections are universal, not limited by subject, format, or national boundary. It includes research materials from all parts of the world and in more than 450 languages. The preservation of podcasts doesn't stop there. The British Library's Sound Archive is also adding podcasts to their, quote, extensive collection of unique sound recordings, which come from all over the world and cover the entire range of recorded sound, unquote. This is one of those humbling affirmation moments for podcasting. It's making a positive impact on culture. Next up, want to get juicier interview answers? Stop talking. Next time you ask a compelling interview question, leave lots of room for your guest to answer. People don't particularly enjoy silence during a conversation, says podcast host Joey Held. If you leave a gap, they'll fill it with additional information. Let them ruminate and don't immediately jump into the next question, says Held. Quote, more often than not, you'll get a better answer than what they initially shared, unquote. This simple trick can score higher quality content, especially if you're interviewing someone experienced. They often have shaped answers in their back pockets. The silence between questions can stir up fresh content and help your guest represent themselves with more flavor. Just be mindful of how long you give them to speak. After all, Chatty Cathys need some steering. Moving on. It's been less than a month into the new year, and podcast creators are working hard. Listen Notes, a podcast search engine that collects data from all publicly accessible RSS-based podcasts, reports that 54 new podcasts have been created worldwide so far. It counts 53,922 new episodes released since the new year rang in. It's officially the decade of podcasting, right? Let's review some podcast stats that got the medium where it is today. In 2019, Listen Notes detected about 4.5 million new episodes. That compares to just over 11 million new episodes published in 2018. In combination, that means in the last 2 years, half of all podcasts in the world were launched. The database shows there are at least 861,295 podcasts and almost 58 million episodes in the world. Is one of those yours? Last but not least, our random podcasting thought of the week. How do you plan to engage your listener community in 2020? That's the question Reddit member Silly Curious asked. Here, we're highlighting our favorite responses. Earthwalker87 says, 30 to 60 second sound clips on our Instagram feed seem to help us out. It's hard to get the average new listener to give an hour-plus podcast a listen, but most will stop scrolling for a sound clip. LimeLink says, offer some cool stuff to download, like guides, cheat sheets, top 10 lists, and when they go to download it, make them enter an email address. Now you'll be getting emails of listeners. Then send some emails with questions for them or ask them for questions via email. Socrates2 says, one way to encourage people is to publicly engage the feedback you do get and approve of, a bit like the advice columns of a newspaper. For more ideas, the podcast dude reminds us to think about how you'd engage people in real life. Who are you trying to talk to? Where do they hang out? What are they interested in? What do you have in common? That's all Sounder has for you this week. Keep on creating.